Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video. Welcome to episode 81 of Bossk Bounty. This is of course the weekly series where you guys ask me questions in the comment section below and I do my very best to answer them each week. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below, and if you happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like on this video as it really helps the video and the channel. This week's episode is jam-packed full of amazing questions once again, and we also have some mail to open a bit later on in the video, which will be awesome, so stay tuned for that. Now, with all that being said, let's get straight on to the first question. Dark Gara says, question for next week. For figures that are based on animated characters, would you mind if they use screenshots from the animated series as the card back, or should they keep using photoshopped realistic art style of card backs? Also, do you think we'll get more figures from the animated and live action series in the vintage collection? The Black series are getting a lot of new figures from the Bad Batch and Mando Season 2, while the vintage collection isn't. To answer your first part of the question there, I think it would look a little bit odd if they decided to change it now. Of course, with all the Clone Wars ones that we've been having, they have had a mixture of, animated and realistic. Same with the figures, in fact, the figures have a realistic head. And I quite like the way that they've done that, and I think if they were to change that now, it would look a bit odd. But saying that, I can understand why people would want animated figures. But for me, they just do not fit in the whole sort of aesthetic of the things that I collect. If they suddenly brought out an animated line, for example, it wouldn't interest me as much as these figures do. Just because I couldn't have an animated Yoda, for example, standing next to a realistic Obi-Wan Kenobi in my collection, it just wouldn't fit. In terms of the second part of your question, in terms of figures from the animated series and the TV series in general, yes, I think we will get more figures from there. I think Hasbro have made no secret about concentrating on the Clone Wars and the Mandalorian, things that are popular. As for the Bad Batch, I think we're just going to have to wait for that and just hope, with our fingers crossed, that there's going to be some more figures coming. I mean, Yakface recently on his website did show that there are 17 more individual SKUs for vintage collection figures, plus a convention exclusive pack, plus the 4-pack, which we don't know what that is yet. So there's still plenty to come this year, which is amazing. And we'll just have to wait and see and find out if any of it is going to be on the Bad Batch. Soup Bone says, hi Tim, been watching the channel for a couple of years now. Awesome channel. Thank you very much, my friend. Question for next week. I enjoyed your Clone Trooper Tuesday videos. Will you be doing any more of those? Thanks and congrats on the 16.2k subs. Thank you very much. To be honest, the Clone Trooper Tuesday thing, I did that for a while, and if I'm honest, it didn't really get as many views as some of my other videos, so I kind of phased it out. I will bring it back because I do have some more clone figures that I want to open up and review. This is one, for example. This is the 212th Battalion Clone Trooper from the Legacy Collection, and this is not the same figure that came out in the Vintage Collection. So I've got one coming from the Vintage Collection which had some damage on the card, which I'm going to open up at the same time as this one. So yeah, I might as well do that in a Clone Trooper Tuesday video, so stay tuned for that. Wyatt Taylor says, hey Bossk, I recently started collecting Vintage Kenner and the Vintage Collection thanks to you, and I really enjoy your content. Thank you very much, Wyatt. I do apologise for spending your money. Question for next week, if Hasbro decides to indulge more into Season 2 of The Mandalorian in terms of making figures, do you think we will get a Cobb Vanth figure reusing the phenomenal VC186 Boba Fett sculpt? I think it'd be an instant seller and collectors would love that kind of character in the vintage collection. What do you think? Absolutely, I definitely think it would be a character that people would want in the vintage collection. I'm not overly sure of how much of the Boba Fett sculpt they could actually use, and of course it would need a removable helmet, which, to be honest, that figure has been designed for that. If you look inside the helmet of that figure, it does have like a sculpted head inside, so they're obviously planning for the future with that. But in terms of the body and everything, I'm not really too sure, because obviously he has a lot of material, doesn't he? Has that red sort of jumper underneath the armour. So we'll just have to wait and see. But of course, it's definitely a figure that people would want. And yeah, Hasbro would be fools not to make it. Darth Hollister says, question for next week. What do you think of the ATM6 Gorilla Walker from The Last Jedi as a possible future HasLab? Or will the negative reactions to the film stop Hasbro from attempting it? P.S. Love your content on the channel. It brings another bright spot to my collecting passion. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Darth Hollister. To be honest, I think with the Gorilla Walker, I don't think the fact that the film split the fandom would even come into it. I think the sheer size of it would be the problem. I mean, if you look at that shot from The Last Jedi, there is also an AT-AT Walker there, or AT-AT Walker as I call them. And the Gorilla Walker absolutely dwarfs it. So if you're thinking about scale, look at the Legacy AT-AT, it is huge. The Gorilla Walker would just be far, far too big, otherwise it just wouldn't look correct. And to be honest, if I'm brutally honest, I wasn't really a massive fan of those guerrilla walkers. I think it was a bit of a lame attempt to sort of recreate that sort of Hoth battle from the Empire Strikes Back. Very, very similar, isn't it? You've even got the guy dipping the finger in the thing to tell us it's salt and not snow. But that's just my opinion. The Last Jedi for me wasn't really something that hit home, and I think those guerrilla walkers, as I say, they're just not for me. I prefer the original AT-AT. Aped3 says, what are the odds that we will get a Star Wars HasLab project by the end of the year? Yeah, that's a tricky one. I'm not too sure. We haven't really got much evidence to go on, have we? I mean, obviously they let the previous HasLab finish well before they announced the next one, but now they're sort of used to it. Perhaps we may even get 2 a year. I don't know. It's impossible to know. It depends what they're thinking of what that HasLab could be. If it's something huge, then obviously a lot more planning would need to go into it. If it's like another big vehicle, if it's something that I've suggested where it's maybe 12 Cantina alien figures or something, then perhaps maybe, you know, the planning and everything, it doesn't need to be thought out so much, and maybe they could just test the water by throwing the idea out there and seeing the fan reaction. So who knows? I hope so. I hope so, because obviously the more stuff we can get, the better. Martin Footer, who's actually a new Patreon of mine, so thank you so much for that, Martin. Another great Q&A question for next week, and it's for Little Bossk. What is your favourite film from the Star Wars saga? Well, I have Little Bossk with me right here now, so he can answer your question.
My favourite film is Return of the Jedi because I like it when Luke Skywalker takes out all Jabba's goons with his green lightsaber.
So there you go. I think that's a pretty good reason to like Return of the Jedi. That is one of the greatest scenes in all of Star Wars, that whole Jabba's scene. So there you go, Martin. I hope that's answered your question. Nino Brown says, still the best source for vintage collection info. Thank you. Cheers, Nino. I do appreciate that, my friend. Question, you mentioned it briefly, but we are due for a new Farm Boy Luke and old Obi. Any thoughts? Yeah, absolutely. So these are two figures that we are most definitely in need of an update of, and with Hasbro trying to complete the 96, and they've updated other figures from the Vintage Original Trilogy Collection and Saga Collection with the Han Solo and Leia, albeit they haven't really updated them too much. But if you look at Lando Calrissian, which we're going to be getting towards the end of the year, he was in the Vintage Original Trilogy Collection, and he's getting a completely new update because obviously he needed it. So hopefully Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi will all get completely new updates for when they decide to complete the 96 in the Vintage Collection. Vader Wannabe says, hey Bossk, love the show. Question for next week. Obi-Wan is my favourite character, so of course I'm over the moon about the new show coming next year. Do you think we will get any figures from the show in the Vintage Collection line? And if so, how long will we have to wait? So we are definitely going to be getting some figures from the Obi-Wan show. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever. And how long are we going to wait? That all depends really. If you look at the Book of Boba Fett at the end of the year, I've got a feeling that we will be getting some figures from the Book of Boba Fett as it releases or just after it releases towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. We're definitely going to get, you know, the Boba Fett, for example, in his re-armor. That is without doubt. We will be getting that figure. So that's something to really look forward to. In terms of the Obi-Wan, when that drops, it all depends on how long Hasbro have had some images and stuff of what Obi-Wan's going to be wearing, because I did see a interview with Ewan McGregor where he said he's going to be looking slightly different in terms of what he's wearing. So if Hasbro have got those images, they're on it already right now, designing those figures for when that show drops. So hopefully when it drops, we'll get the figures. Hamish Lipscomb says, great video as always, Tim. Question for next week. Should they re-release the Star Wars The Vintage Collection Rebel Soldier Echo Base Gear VC68? And yes, they should. This is one of the figures that if they're going to be doing repacks, which of course we know they do, you can see here I've done reviews of these most recently. So they do repack figures for new collectors, and this is one that should be done, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would love this figure. It's expensive on the secondary market and you can army build him. So, and look at that head, by the way, with the scarf hanging down. Remind you of anything? Should have been on him. But yeah, absolutely VC68. If anything's going to be repacked, it should be ones like that. All right then, so time to open up this fan mail that I got sent to my PO box. There it is there. And it's from Dario, which I believe is Biker Scout 74, I think his name is on YouTube. So thank you so much for this, mate. We're going to open this up right now and check out what's inside. I've already slit the top and there is a note inside. So let's have a read of the note before we check out what's inside. Hi Tim, I think I remember a couple of weeks ago on your 16k celebration live stream that you said you were in need of a vintage Weequay to add to your collection. Well, since you kindly sent the vintage collection Weequay Skiff Master to me, I thought it only fitting that I send you an original vintage Weequay in return. Hope this helps you get a little closer to completing your original 96 run. It absolutely does. Thank you so much. Keep up the great content and hope to meet you at a convention in the not too distant future. All the best, Dario, Biker Scout 74. Absolutely, my friend. I will definitely see you hopefully at a convention in the future, maybe Echo Base Live in August. That would be awesome. So thank you so much for this, my friend. Let's check it out. So yeah, I did have a spare vintage collection Weequay Skiff Master, and I was happy to send it to Dario. That's no problem at all, my friend. So there we go, there's a little lanyard there. What's that got on there? Shop the Galaxy, Amazon. That's cool. Never seen those before. Lego Star Wars. Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Right. Let's have a look at Weequay. Yeah, I do not have this one in my vintage lineup, as you say. So this is going to be good. Straight into the Detolf cabinet with all the others. Oh, wow. He's looking great, isn't he? Look at that. Fantastic condition. I mean, obviously the Weequays and the Skiff Guards aren't too difficult to get, but it doesn't matter. This is a fantastic gift. So thank you so much. With his little staff there, all in perfect condition. So thank you so much, my friend. I really do appreciate that. As I say, he's going to go straight into the cabinet, and my Cap 4's just fallen over. LJ Perkins says, hi Boss, great vids. Mate, my question is, what is your top 3 vehicles you want in the vintage collection, and do you think we will get any Bad Batch in the vintage collection this year? And do you think it will be single cards, a special action figure set type? Keep it up, mate. Yeah, I think I just covered the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, I get questions about the Bad Batch all the time. So Hasbro, if you're watching, I doubt you are, but if you are, you know, fans of the vintage collection want the Bad Batch in the line. So come on. We haven't got any of those. So come on, Hasbro, give us the Bad Batch. As for vehicles in the vintage collection, there's a couple that I've always wanted in the vintage collection, and that is the Darth Vader TIE Advanced. I think that's desperately needed in the vintage collection. The Speeder Bike is another one that's needed in the vintage collection, and I've put the Cap 2 there. Why not? Come on, Hasbro, give us a mini rig. Give us a Cap 2 in the vintage collection. That'll be awesome. Rob S722 says, great stuff as always, love the content. I have a question for you. Why in the original Kenner line did the original Luke have a yellow lightsaber? He never had yellow, and in The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Bespin, they had a chance to fix this problem and gave him a yellow again, and finally fixed it in the Jedi, giving him the green. Keep up the great work. So this is one of those questions that a lot of people have asked over the years, and I'm not really going to attempt to answer it because I think there's already a really good video out there from Retroblasting, which I think is a fun watch as well. So I'll leave a link in the description to that video by Retroblasting. It's quite an old video of theirs now. It's from 2012. But Michael goes over the whole yellow lightsaber fiasco in that video, and it's a good watch. So I'll just leave a link to that and go ahead and watch that video. It's really, really good. Marky D 1967 says, hi Bossk, here's a question that crossed my mind during this Sunday's episode. I noticed you had a few card backs unpunched on display. Why don't we see Hasbro releasing unpunched card backs anymore? One would think that an unpunched version carries more value than a punched version and is more desirable for collectors. So yeah, I think when they brought the vintage collection back, I don't want to say they didn't have collectors in mind, but they had retail in mind. And I think retail complained about the little hanger tab falling out and making a mess on the floor and having to pick all those up all the time. I think that was the reason anyway, so they stopped it. So here's a new one, which is factory cut. There's an old figure with the punch still in there. So I think that's why they don't do it anymore. And of course, we also know that the card stock's changed as well. It's a lot thinner. But don't worry, all of those things have been fed back to Hasbro. On the recent Q&A, it was brought up by Vanth Skull about unpunched cards and stuff like that. And maybe having, you know, the figures that get sent to the fan channels at the fan channel orders, online shops where they're ordering cases and they're sending out collector grade figures. You want them unpunched, whereas figures that go to retail, yeah, send them punched and they can just hang them on the pegs. I don't see the problem. Maxwell Gaynor says, hey Bossk, love the vid and had a question about a future figure. After the previous cancellation of the Revan figure, do you think Hasbro will actually make the effort to make a new mould, or do you think they'll shelve his character for good? I don't think they'll shelve his character for good. I think that all they need to do is look at the success of the Black Series figure of Revan and the fact that they went ahead and did another one in a different outfit like the light side Revan, so it must be popular. And I think their plan to release the 30th anniversary one in the vintage collection didn't go down too well because it's an old inferior sculpt, and I think they're going to have to work on a new one, and I think they know that. It's just sort of slotting him in when the time's right. Alright then guys, that's it for this week. If you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below, and hopefully you'll be featured next week. I thank you all for watching every week. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.